The gentleman from Pennsylvania, the Honorable Mike Doyle.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, as someone who has opposed this misguided diversion from the war on terror from the very beginning, I believe it's way past time for our country to take stock of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going in Iraq. I think it's important to remember how we got there. President Bush told Congress and the American people that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction and was an imminent threat to the United States. That Saddam had ties to al-Qaeda and the 9/11 attackers. That the invasion, occupation, and reconstruction would cost us nothing. That Iraqi oil revenues would cover all the cost. So where are we today? We know that Saddam had no weapons of mass destruction and that he posed no imminent threat to the United States. We know Saddam had no operational relationship with al-Qaeda. 80% of the Iraqi people want us to leave their country. The invasion, occupation, and reconstruction of Iraq will cost us at least $500 billion, not to mention the cost in human lives and international goodwill. More than 3,000 American soldiers are dead. More than 20,000 American soldiers are wounded. The burden of the Iraq war is being borne exclusively by our children and grandchildren who will bear the debt, and the families of our military personnel who at best experience long separations and terrible worry, and at worst lose a beloved family member forever. The invasion and occupation of Iraq has alienated our allies, has called our credibility into question around the world. It has soured Middle Eastern attitudes about the United States and Western democracy. And finally, the invasion of Iraq got us into a long-term bloody occupation of a country with no significant connection to the war on terror and diverted critical military and intelligence resources from the fight against al-Qaeda. The recently released National Intelligence Estimate concluded that there is little prospect for political reconciliation in Iraq at this time. So, what should the United States do? What does victory in Iraq mean at this point? Most of us would see victory as any kind of political settlement that ended the violence. But the American people need to hear the truth. And the truth is, there is no happy ending for Iraq as long as our presence allows the Maliki government to avoid making the political compromises necessary for peace in Iraq. Now, the President has proposed a significant increase in the numbers of U.S. troops serving in Iraq. I believe that Congress should oppose this escalation. I don't believe it has any real chance of producing a political solution in the war in Iraq or even curbing the violence in Baghdad. I'm not alone in this belief. General Colin Powell, General George Casey, General John Abizaid, General Joseph Orr, General Barry McCaffrey, Major General Don Shepard, and General James Conway all question this escalation. Now, many supporters of the President's Iraq policy ask what those of us who oppose this military escalation would support instead. This member of Congress believes that the United States should begin an immediate, orderly redeployment of our troops out of Iraq, with the goal of completing that redeployment by the end of the year. We should lead and enlist the participation of all neighboring countries in a massive diplomatic surge to help contain the civil war already underway. And that diplomatic surge should include all the countries in the region, including Iran and Syria. The only way to bring stability to that region is through a regional effort. Our troops have performed with courage, compassion, and professionalism. They did everything that was asked of them. Their work in Iraq is done. We gave the Iraqis their freedom. It's up to them to decide what they'll do with it. It's time for the Iraqis to take responsibility for their own security. It's time for Iraqis to decide if Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds wish to share resources, share power, and coexist peacefully as one country. America cannot force them to do this, no matter how long we stay there. Only the Iraqi people can decide this. Mr. Speaker, it's time. The American people have known for quite a while it's time. And I believe this week that finally the United States Congress will take the first step to bringing our troops home by adopting this resolution. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield 5 minutes to the gentleman